All right, so we just finished watching that motivational speakers video.
Yeah.
And wow, so much to unpack, right?
Absolutely.
We're going to today do a deep dive into what we saw.
Yep.
Try to figure out like what we can actually use, you know?
Absolutely. Taking those motivational sound bites and like turning them into real tools.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, one of the things that really stuck out to me was how much the speaker was talking about unlocking your potential.
Right.
And kind of the idea that we limit ourselves so much,
Yeah.
thinking that our abilities are fixed. But like, from a scientific point of view, what is that all about?
Well, that's where the idea of a growth mindset comes in.
Okay.
And, you know, you hear that term thrown around a lot, but
Yeah.
it's more than just a buzzword, right? There's actual research that shows that our brains
Really?
are wired for adaptability.
Wow.
Think about it like even learning something basic, like riding a bike.
Uh-huh.
Like it changes the structure of our brains.
Huh.
So if we can bring that same mindset to like the goals that we have, imagine the possibilities.
That's incredible, yeah. It's like, it's not just believing you can achieve something, it's like believing that your brain is literally designed to grow and adapt,
Exactly.
which is pretty powerful. And, you know, another thing I thought was really interesting that the speaker talked about was the analogy of falling as a new beginning,
Oh, yeah.
which I thought was really cool because,
That's a good one.
yeah, like I struggle with viewing setbacks as failures. And that was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, like shift the perspective a little bit.
Yeah. And I loved how Sinker said that. They said, falling isn't a failure. Falling is just a sign that a new beginning is on the horizon.
Oh, I love that. That's great.
It's a great quote. And it just reminds us that like resilience is built by like embracing those so-called failures, you know?
Right.
And
Yeah.
in fact, studies show that people who view those setbacks
Okay.
as opportunities to learn, they tend to be more successful in the long run.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense to me. It's like, it's not about avoiding failure, but more about like how you react to it.
Absolutely.
Right. And speaking of approaching things a little differently, the speaker used this really cool analogy
Oh, yeah?
of mountain climbing to talk about goals, right?
Yeah.
Focusing on the steps, not the summit.
Mm.
Is that something that like you've used in your life?
Absolutely. It's all about breaking down those goals into smaller steps, right? So you're not
Mhm.
staring up at this massive mountain feeling overwhelmed. You're like,
Mhm.
all right, what's the path right in front of me? It's like
Uh-huh.
climbing a staircase, right?
Yeah,
Instead of trying to leap to the top in one bound.
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because then instead of being paralyzed by how big something is, you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I can take a step.
You're taking action.
I can do this.
And that builds momentum.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, there's even a scientific basis for this.
Oh, really?
When we break down tasks
Oh.
into smaller chunks, it activates the reward system in our brain.
Oh, wow.
Gives us a little hit of dopamine
Oh, that's good.
each time we complete a step.
Nice.
So that sense of accomplishment, no matter how small, it motivates us to keep going.
That's fascinating. So it's not just about like
Yeah.
making it less overwhelming. It's
Right.
about literally hacking into your brain.
Yeah, hacking your brain's reward system to keep you motivated.
That's really cool. And that kind of ties into another thing the speaker said, which was about self-belief. They said something like, you know, if you don't believe in yourself, you can't expect others to.
Right.
But it's easy to say believe in yourself, but how do you
That is.
like actually do that? How do you cultivate that?
Well, that's where the power of positive self-talk comes in.
Okay.
And it's not just empty affirmations, right? It's
Yeah.
about
Right.
choosing to focus on your strengths
Mhm.
and then reframing the negative thoughts.
Okay.
And the amazing thing is that research shows that, like, this can actually change the neural pathways in your brain over time.
So you're like rewiring your brain for success.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
And there's a specific technique called multisensory visualization,
Oh, okay.
which can be really effective.
Tell me about that.
So it's not just about seeing yourself achieve the goal.
Right.
It's about engaging all your senses.
Oh, wow.
So imagine yourself in that moment of success.
Okay.
What do you see? What do you hear? Are there any smells, tastes associated with that accomplishment?
Wow.
How does it feel physically?
So you're like making a high-def movie trailer
Yeah.
for your own success.
Exactly. The more vividly you can imagine it,
Yeah.
but the more real it becomes to your brain.
That's incredible. I like that.
So it reduces fear, boosts confidence.
Yeah, you're like having a dress rehearsal for
Easy.
your own success.
And what's interesting is that there's actually like a neuroscientific basis for this.
Okay.
Because when we visualize ourselves performing an action, our brains actually fire the same neural pathways,
Oh, wow.
as if we were actually physically doing it.
That's incredible.
So mental rehearsal can actually prepare our bodies for real-world performance.
That's so wild. So it's like you're actually
Yeah.
training your brain to do it
Exactly.
by imagining it.
Yeah.
So cool. And, that kind of reminds me of another thing that the speaker was talking about,
Okay.
which was about how the goals that we have actually can impact others too.
Oh, yeah?
They were talking about pursuing something bigger than yourself can actually give you more purpose and more motivation.
Right.
Which I'll admit, I was a little skeptical when I
Yeah.
first heard that because I thought, well, that sounds kind of cheesy.
Right.
But then I was like, actually, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
It does, yeah.
Because if you connect your goals to something that's not just what you're going to get out of it, but like
Right.
how it might help others or make the world a better place,
Yeah.
then that gives you more motivation.
And if you think about the people who you really admire, right?
Right.
The people who are really making a difference,
Huh.
they're not just driven by like ego or ambition.
Right.
They're fueled by a passion to make the world a better place.
I like that. So it's like finding that sweet spot where your passion and something that helps other people
Yeah.
align.
Overlaps, yeah. And, it doesn't have to be some grand world-changing mission.
Right.
It could be as simple as using your skills to help a friend.
Oh, yeah.
Volunteering your time.
Right.
Just being a more supportive person in your community.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it's like it's not just this
Yeah.
isolated individual thing. It's
Right.
like, how can you connect with other people and
Yeah.
be a part of something bigger?
Absolutely.
I like that.
And it brings me to a thought.
Okay.
We always talk about motivation as this individual thing.
Yeah.
Like it's all about personal drive and ambition.
Yeah.
But what if we kind of shifted that and looked at it as something more collective?
Oh, interesting.
What if we looked at motivation as a shared resource?
Okay.
Something that we can cultivate and amplify
Right.
through collaboration and support.
Ooh, I like that. So it's like changing the whole
Right.
competition thing that we see so much. Yeah.
Instead of constantly comparing ourselves to others,
Yeah.
what if we focused on like celebrating each other's successes
Right.
and offering support when someone stumbles?
Yeah.
Imagine the energy and the momentum
That would be amazing.
if we approached our goals with a spirit of collaboration and shared purpose.
Yeah, I love that. That feels so much more
Empowering.
empowering and honestly more fun
Yes.
than this like pressure to win all the time.
It is.
So I'm curious, listener,
What's resonating with you?
what's resonating with you from all this?
What insights have stood out
What are you going to take away from this?
and actually applied to your own life?
Yeah. We've covered a lot. We talked about growth mindset,
Reframing challenges.
the science of positive self-talk,
Yeah.
the power of visualization.
Absolutely.
We even touched on that idea of
Collective motivation.
selective motivation, yeah,
Supporting each other.
and how that can amplify our individual effort.
Exactly.
But the real magic happens when you actually take these ideas.
And put them into practice.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, when we were talking in that last part about the power of positive thinking,
Mm-hmm.
the speaker really emphasized that it's not just about having happy thoughts,
Yeah.
it's about actually using it to fuel action.
Yeah.
Like, don't just dream it, be
Look
it,
at that, yeah.
but with like
A little more science behind it.
a little more science.
I think
know.
that's a really crucial distinction.
Yeah.
Because,
Mm-hmm.
it's really easy to fall into that trap of thinking
Right.
that, I'll just visualize success
Right.
and it will magically appear.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's the action that brings about real change.
Right.
But what's so fascinating is how we can use techniques like visualization to bridge that gap
Okay, yeah.
between the thought and the action.
Right.
So you mentioned multisensory visualization before.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit more about how that works?
Yeah, so tell me more about that because you said it's not just about picturing it,
Right.
it's about engaging all your senses, but
Yeah.
how do you actually do that?
So instead of just picturing yourself achieving the goal,
Okay.
you're going to engage all those senses.
Okay.
So imagine yourself in that moment of success.
All right.
What do you see?
Uh-huh.
What do you hear?
Okay.
Are there any specific smells or tastes associated with that accomplishment?
Wow.
How does it feel physically?
So you're creating this
Yeah.
high definition experience in your mind?
Yeah, immersive.
Immersive. Yeah.
And the more real it feels to your brain,
Uh-huh.
the more likely you are to actually take action. It's almost like tricking your brain
Right.
into believing that you've already achieved the goal.
Oh.
And that can reduce fear, boost
Whoa.
your confidence.
So you're mentally rehearsing for success.
Exactly.
That's interesting.
And the interesting thing is There's actually a neuroscientific basis for this.
What, really?
Yeah, because when we visualize ourselves performing an action,
Oh, okay.
our brains actually fire the same neural pathways as if we were physically doing it.
Get out of here.
So in a way, mental rehearsal can actually prepare our bodies for real-world performance.
Whoa, that's so cool.
It is cool.
So it's like
Oh.
by vividly imagining yourself doing something,
Yeah.
you're actually training your brain
You're training your brain.
to do it.
Exactly.
That's really cool.
It's pretty amazing.
I like that a lot. And that reminds me of something else the speaker was talking about, which was
Okay.
how our goals actually can impact others too.
Oh, yeah.
And they were talking about how like pursuing something bigger than yourself.
Can actually give you a bigger sense of purpose and motivation.
Right.
I'll admit, when I first heard that, I was a little like,
Yeah.
oh, that sounds a little cheesy.
I get it.
But then the more I thought about it, I was like,
Yeah.
actually, wait a minute. That makes a lot of sense.
It does make sense. Yeah.
Because if you can connect your goals to something
Yeah.
that's not just
Yeah.
about what you're going to get out of it, but how it might help others
Yeah.
make the world a better place.
Make a positive impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That gives you more motivation.
Yeah. Think about it this way.
Okay.
Like, think about the people you admire.
Okay.
The people who are really making a difference in the world. Are they just driven by ego, by
Right.
ambition,
Right.
or are they fueled by a passion to make the world a better place?
I like that. So it's like
Yeah.
finding that sweet spot where your passion
Yes.
and something that serves others
Yeah.
aligns.
Overlaps.
And it doesn't have to be this grand world-changing mission.
Right. It could be a small thing.
Yeah, it could be something as simple as using your skills to help a friend,
Right.
volunteering your time at a local charity,
Right.
just being a more supportive presence in your community.
Yeah. I like that. So it's like, it's not just this like
Yeah,
isolated individualistic
yeah,
thing.
it's about connection
Yeah.
and contribution.
Yes. I like that a lot. It's like reframing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's cool.
And that brings me to a thought that's been brewing in my mind.
Okay.
We often talk about motivation
Mm-hmm.
in these very individualistic terms, right?
Mhm.
Like it's
Yeah.
all about personal drive, ambition.
Uh-huh.
But what if we shifted that focus
Okay.
to something more collective?
All right. I like where this is going.
What if we looked at motivation as like a shared resource,
Okay.
something that we can actually cultivate and amplify
Right.
through collaboration and support?
Whoa. So instead of it being this competitive thing, it's
Right.
more like we're all in this together.
We're all in this together.
Yeah, I like that.
What if, instead of constantly comparing ourselves to others,
Right. Yeah.
we focused on celebrating each other's successes
Right.
and offering support when someone stumbles?
I love that.
Imagine the energy and momentum we could create
It would be amazing.
if we approached our goals with that spirit of collaboration
Yeah,
and
yeah.
shared purpose.
That feels so much more, honestly, like fun
It is fun.
than the other way, which
Yeah.
is like this pressure to win.
It is.
So I'm curious, listener,
What's resonating with you?
what are you taking away from this?
What insights have stood out to you?
What are you going to apply to your own life?
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
We talked about the growth mindset,
Reframing
the
challenges,
science of positive self-talk.
the power of visualization.
Yeah.
We even explored this idea of,
Collective motivation.
supporting each other.
Supporting each other.
Amplifying each other's efforts.
Exactly.
But the real magic happens
when you take these ideas
when you actually do it.
and put them into practice.
Yeah, go out and do it. Okay, so as we're wrapping up our deep dive on motivation here, I
Yeah.
keep coming back to that mountain climbing analogy
Right.
that the speaker talked about, where it's like,
Yeah, don't focus on the summit.
don't focus on the summit, just focus on taking one step
At a time.
at a time.
Yeah.
And we talked about how that applies to like breaking down a big goal into
Okay.
smaller chunks. But I wonder if we could take that
Oh.
a step further.
I like where this is going.
What if instead of just breaking down the goal,
Okay.
we break down the first step?
Oh, interesting.
What if we make that initial action
Yeah.
so tiny
Okay.
that it's almost impossible to fail?
I like that. Give me an example.
Okay, so let's say your goal is to write a novel.
Okay.
Instead of saying, I'm going to write 1,000 words today, your first step is
Yeah.
open up your laptop and create a new document.
Ah. Okay. So you're removing all barriers
Sure.
to entry.
Yes.
You're making that initial action so simple
Yes.
that you almost can't not do it.
You can't not do it. Exactly.
So you're tricking your brain into getting started.
Yes.
And then once you've taken that tiny step,
Uh-huh.
the next one's a little easier.
Right.
And the one after that's even easier.
And then you have momentum.
Exactly. You're building momentum.
Yeah.
One minuscule action at a time.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like the journey of 1,000 pages.
Yeah.
Begins with a single keystroke.
I love that.
Right. And this can apply to
Anything.
anything. Want to work out every day?
Mm.
Put on your workout clothes.
Yep. Want to learn a new language?
Yeah.
Listen to a 5-minute podcast.
It's like
Yeah.
taking the pressure off
Take the pressure off.
and making it fun.
Yes. Playfulness, experimentation.
It's almost like you're making it a game.
It is like a game.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the beauty of it.
And then you're not so afraid
You take the fear out of failure.
to fail.
You're not paralyzed by what if I don't succeed?
Right.
You're just focused on taking that next tiny step.
And it just changes.
It does. The whole energy
It's a completely different energy.
around it. And it's interesting because as we've been like unpacking this motivational speakers talk,
Mm.
I'm really struck by how much like
Yeah.
actual practical advice there was.
Real wisdom in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. We dug deeper into things like growth mindset, reframing challenges.
Right. The science behind positive self-talk.
Yeah. The power of visualization,
We even explored,
collective motivation.
yeah, supporting each other.
Yeah.
But now it's your turn.
Now it's your turn, listener.
What resonated most with you?
What really stood out to you?
What are you going to use?
Yeah. What are you going to take away from this conversation?
Yeah. What tiny step are you going to take today?
What action are you going to take?
Towards a goal. Yeah. And remember,
It doesn't have to be big.
it doesn't have to be this huge thing. Start small, be consistent, and trust the process.
And as you go about your day, we leave you with this one thought.
What does a tiny step look like in your life?
What does a tiny step look like for you?
And what if you aimed even smaller?
So small.
So minuscule that it felt almost impossible to fail.
Food for thought.
Food for thought.
Until next time, keep diving deep.